Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back. Today's video is sponsored by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake from frozen subscription box of sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pastas. And my family loves it because, as some of you may know, I bake a loaf of sourdough bread every week because it's easier for me to digest and it's absolutely delicious. But when I don't have the time, I can turn to Wild Grain. Wild Grain allows you to have freshly baked bread on the table in 25 minutes or less. Freezing locks in the flavor and the texture and the nutrients without using preservatives. Wild Grain partners with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to keep the tradition of artisanal and nutritious food alive. Wild Grain uses simple ingredients and slow fermentation processes that can be easier for your body to digest and richer in nutrients and antioxidants. No preservatives, no shortcuts. And tons of people besides myself love Wild Grain. Wild Grain has over 40,000 five-star reviews and has been voted by USA Today as the best subscription box 3 years in a row. And Wild Grain gives back. With every box, you can choose 2 meals to donate to a food security nonprofit of your choice at no extra cost. So if you'd like to try Wild Grain for yourself, you can click the link down below and use my code emmymade to receive $30 off your first box and free croissants for life. Not a bad deal. Big thanks to Wild Grain for sponsoring this video and for allowing me to make better videos for all of you. All right, my lovelies, today we're going to be making something that was inspired by the bins, also known as the Goodwill Outlet. The Goodwill Outlet is a place where all of the things at Goodwill, which is a thrift store that don't sell, everything comes to the outlet and is placed in bins, and you can rummage through them and pay for things by the pound. $1.89, I believe, is the going rate per pound. Anything. We're talking about clothing, household items, all kinds of things are dumped into these long wheeled bins, and you can rummage through them, pick what you like, and pay by the pound. It's a wonderful place if you love to root through junk and look for treasures. Now, the first time I ever went to the bins or the Goodwill Outlet was when I lived in Portland, Oregon, and that's where I was first introduced to the bins. My husband and I loved it. It was just so much fun rooting through all these kinds of things, looking for treasure. Now, I went recently with my oldest child, who also loves to rummage through stuff. He's looking for particular items so that he can upcycle and make all kinds of projects for his model making. So on a recent trip to the bins, I found this. Ta-da! It's a pan. It's a mini loaf pan, 8 compartments here. It's definitely been used, but in very good shape. I gave it a thorough washing and scrubbing. But this reminded me of a reel that I saw on Instagram by Sean's Pizza, where he takes a very similar pan and makes mini Detroit style pizzas. So I thought the pizzas were so stinking cute, and I looked up the cost, and they run about $20, and it had me kind of second guessing myself. I said, $20 for a pan that I'm not sure I'm going to use too much? At any rate, then I went to the bins, and then I saw this and I said, well, I guess it's kismet. I guess I'm making the mini Detroit style pizzas, because look how stinking cute. I could also make little tiny banana breads, pumpkin breads. I think that would work great in here. Corn breads would be totally adorable. So now I have this pan. I paid maybe $2 for it, and it's a really good pan. Nice and heavy. And let's make pizza. I have to confess, another reason why I was delighted by this idea of a mini Detroit style pizza was because of these. This would be a perfect excuse to use these. Have you seen these? They're so stinking cute. These are mini pepperonis that are made by Hormel, but they're very, very tiny. They're size of a dime, US 10 cents dime. But as they cook, I'm sure they're going to shrink up. And they're going to look so cute on this little tiny pizza. Another reason why I thought this is going to be a great idea is because since we're making a mini version, we're going to have lots of crust. Each one's going to have a crust, so each bite's going to have a nice crunch. Detroit style pizza is a pan style pizza. The crust is thicker, kind of pillowy, a little bit like a focaccia, but fluffy. And there's lots of oil involved, so it gets really crisp on the edges. And we're going to have cheese and sauce on top as well, but it's going to be pretty simple. Cheese, sauce, and some pepperoni. I think it's going to be great. I think the kids are going to love it. I think this will be perfect for lunch boxes. So let's go ahead and get started. So to make the dough, we only need 4 ingredients: bread flour, water, instant yeast, and kosher salt. If you don't have kosher salt, just use a little bit less. By the way, this is the same recipe I used in my Detroit style pizza video that I made a few years ago. I'll put a link to that down below. I loved it, so I'm going to use the same recipe. So into my bowl, I have 300 grams of bread flour. Next, we're going to do 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast and the same of kosher salt. All right, I'm going to give that a mix just to distribute the yeast. And then to that, 200 grams of water. I'm going to mix this into a shaggy dough. I also have the recipe on my website if you need a printable version. So initially it's going to be really shaggy and it's going to resist mixing, but it'll come along. So we got most of the flour incorporated, but you see how it's ragged and not smooth at all, kind of dry? That's all right. Again, the flour has to rehydrate. So we're just gonna let this rest for about 10 minutes, allow the flour to rehydrate before we knead it. We're gonna knead it for 10 minutes. You can do this in a machine if you've got one, or you can just do it by hand. I enjoy doing it by hand. I find it really pleasurable. It's really fun. It's really fun to feel the transformation of the dough as well. So I'm gonna let that rest for 10 minutes. So not much has changed here, but if you squeeze it, you'll notice that it's a lot less elastic and it feels wetter, which is great. So now we're going to knead this, and you can slap it on the table and pull and stretch it, which is kind of fun, especially when you have a really wet dough, which this is on the wetter side. It's a bit sticky. See that, how it's sticking a bit to my hands? Well, as we work it and as the gluten develops, it's going to get softer and more supple. You might have the urge to add more flour to this, but resist that urge because it is sticky. But just have faith and trust the process because it will get less sticky. So we continue kneading this. I've only kneaded it now for maybe 2 minutes, but keep doing this for an additional 8 minutes. So after you've kneaded your dough for an additional 8 minutes, you're gonna put a generous coating of olive oil inside this bowl, rub your dough ball into it, flip it over, and that's to keep it from drying out. And then you're gonna cover it. Let it rest for 2 hours or until it doubles in size. This is what you'll get in 2 hours. Look at that. Beautiful, smooth, and fluffy. So this is a single batch. If you don't have a mini pan, you can make a 9x13 batch of Detroit style pizza. It works beautifully. If you have a Lloyd pan, which is a beautiful steel dark colored pan, it makes the best crispy pizza. So if you don't have one of those, it's fine. You can use a regular baking pan. But if you've got one that's dark colored, it's even better. It absorbs more heat and you'll get a nice crust on it. But use what you've got. So in this case, we're going to be making mini versions. So let me grab my pan. I'm going to generously oil each one of these wells. I'm putting maybe a 1/2 teaspoon or so of olive oil, maybe a teaspoon into each well. This is pretty important to get the dough nice and crispy and so that the dough doesn't stick or the pizza doesn't stick. So now we're going to take our dough and divide it into 10 pieces. So I'm going to divide each half into 5 pieces. Add the pieces to the trays. The middle slices fit in perfectly. Look at that. Gorgeous, right? So we're just going to let this rest for an additional 30 minutes and then it's going to relax a little bit more. And then we can push it into the corners if need be. So while the dough is resting, let's go ahead and prep our cheese. Now what's traditionally used on Detroit style pizza is something called brick cheese. It's a locally made kind of cheese. It's kind of similar in my opinion to, in terms of flavor, to Monterey Jack. But what's interesting, not only is the cheese very specific, but it's often diced. It's not shredded. So I'm going to dice my cheese today. I'm just using mozzarella because this is what I have locally available. You could try using Monterey Jack, but if you've got brick cheese, then by all means use that. I'm also choosing to cube this into cubes to be a little bit more traditional. I think it melts up differently as well when you cube it rather than shredding it. So I'm going to take the effort to dice it up. So this is how much mozzarella? An 8-ounce block. So I've got to make it to scale. Make these little tiny cubes. Look at those little cubes. Okay, lovelies, it's been 30 minutes since I placed the dough into the oiled wells and they've poofed up a bit. This is an opportunity now to nudge the dough into the corners if they haven't quite reached. For the 2 scrap pieces that I had, I placed them into these little metal dishes that I happen to have. So that'll be perfect. So one of the unique things about a Detroit style pizza is also the assembly procedure. We put the sauce on at the end, on the top, and we put it on as a little strip of sauce. First, we're gonna add pepperoni. Pepperoni onto the bread first. Amazing, right? In this case, we're using these tiny little baby peps. Look how stinking cute they are. And when I made my first Detroit style pizza, I lined them up in a couple of rows. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and do that for this pizza as well. In the original recipe, I hand sliced the pepperoni, so a little bit thicker than what you can get pre-sliced. But I'm going to add a few on the top as well, just because they're so stinking cute and these are gonna shrink, and I want to see the pepperoni too. So those are all lined up and we're gonna do the same thing for the round pans. Equally cute. Next, we're going to add our cheese, little cubes. Generously drizzle, sprinkle those on top. Breaking them up a bit, you know, so we don't have giant clumps. Cubes and circles, it's also geometric. Gosh, maybe we are gonna use up all this cheese. It seemed like too much at the time, but nope. All right, next for the sauce, I'm going to use my favorite jarred sauce because this is what I've got. But if you want to make a homemade sauce, you certainly can do so. I did that in the original video, and again, I'll put a link to the recipe link down below so you can make it from scratch if you like. But I'm going to use this sauce because I like it, and that's what I've got. So in this case, I'm going to do 2 little vertical strips if I can, just to make them mini versions of the original. You know? Oh, this is gonna be tricky. 1. Oh, I think I can do it. 2. Yes. So a good heaping tablespoon of sauce per, pizza. My depth perception gets all out of whack when I'm trying to do a procedure when I'm looking through the lens of a camera rather than just doing it in person. Know what I mean? Much easier when you're not holding a camera. Okay, so we've got 2 lines of sauce. Look at our little friends, so orderly. So cute and tidy. Now, lovelies, I'm going to pop this into a cracking hot oven, 550 degrees Fahrenheit, which I've been preheating. This oven back here does not go hot enough, so I'm gonna use my other oven, 550 for 12 to 15 minutes, or until everything is golden, bubbly, melty, and done. So I will be back once we've cooked these and we'll give them a taste. I cannot wait. They're gonna be... Thank you, Bits. Right, see you in a little bit. Alrighty, my lovelies, I just took out the little mini Detroit style pizzas out of the oven, and let's quickly get them out of the pan. Look how stinking cute they are. So I'm gonna get them on a rack so that we don't lose any of that crispness. Oh, please come out. Oh Lord. If these don't come out, is this why people get rid of these pans? Because they do this? This did not happen with my Lloyd pan. Are you for reals? This is kind of paining me because I want these to come out and be crispy. And if it's not, I'm gonna be mad. I love it when you have a plan and you said, oh, this is Kismet, I'm supposed to make this recipe. And then this happens. And then you realize maybe this is why this pan is at the Amazing, right? But I'm getting the pieces out slowly but surely. Oh. Alrighty, lovelies, what a struggle. I finally got all the pizzas out and they looked pretty ravaged. Oh, so sad. The pizzas stuck terribly to the pan. Just they would not let go. The bottoms that were liberally oiled did not stick. But the sides, I think it was the cheese that caused all the sticking, it was just like concrete, would not come out of the pan. So perhaps that's why the pan was at Goodwill in the first place and in the bins, because it stuck. I don't know. So lesson learned. What I thought was going to be a wonderful gem ended up being a bit of a nightmare. But better me than you. At any rate, I got some mini pizzas. The ones that I made in the separate tins came out beautifully. Did not have any sticking issues at all, had the same amount of oil in them. They did not brown as nicely as I would have liked. Not as dark brown as the Lloyd pan version when I made this pizza the first time, which was a little disappointing. This one's a little darker. I almost forgot to add some pepperonis to the tops of the pizza, so I did that midway while they were baking. So some of these have little pepperonis on top, which I think look absolutely adorable. Look how stinking cute. Alrighty, after all that heartache, let's finally give our mini Detroit-style pizzas a taste. Itadakimasu. Oh. All right. Still delicious. Salty, fluffy. Look how fluffy this is. Chewy, cheesy, and it has a really nice kind of grilled, toasted flavor. One thing I am disappointed by is the lack of crust. When I made this the first time, it was nice and crusty, and I think that has to do with the pan. This is my Lloyd pan. It's made by Lloyd. It's really heavy steel and it has a nice dark color to it, and it creates a very nice crusty crust. And I think it's because it's heavy gauge steel, so it really conducts heat really well. On my other pan is a little, I thought, pretty heavyweight and relatively dark in color. It did not create a nice dark crust, and it stuck terribly. Still very tasty and well seasoned. Plenty of salt in there between the sauce, the cheese, and the dough. It's just missing that crispness. And some of you may think that was not enough sauce. I think there's plenty of sauce. Really nice balance between bread, crust, cheese, and pepperoni. I'm just missing the crispiness. I particularly love it when pepperoni gets cuppy like that. So stinking cute. All right, this one looks like it has a little bit more crust on it. Let's try that one. Itadakimasu. It does. When cheese caramelizes and gets all that kind of frico flavor, I love it. But unfortunately, much of my cheese stuck to my pan. Look at this. So sad. So the edges, all this stuff is supposed to be with the pizza. So, womp womp. Oh man. Well, my failure should not discourage you from making this style of pizza because it's absolutely delicious. Use a nice heavy pan and spray your pan really liberally. Perhaps that's what I could have done. Sprayed it really well before I added a teaspoon of olive oil per tray. I don't know. I had a bundt pan that was like that too. It was just kind of cursed. You know, I would try everything. I tried so many different ways to get a perfect bundt cake, but it would always stick in just a couple little spots. And finally, I just had to get rid of it, and I got a new one, and it didn't stick on the new one. So I think there is a shelf life to these non-stick coatings, even though this pan is not marketed as a non-stick pan, but somehow I haven't had any trouble with it. At any rate, still makes a really delicious pizza, especially if you like a really thick, fluffy, airy crust. Then this is the recipe for you. My oldest is going to love this one. Alrighty, my lovelies. Thanks so much for watching, and big thanks to Wild Grain for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to check out Wild Grain for yourself, you can click the link down below and use my code emmymade, and you can receive $30 off your first box, plus free croissants for life. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo. Take care. Bye. Man, what disappointment! I was so stoked about this. Oh well. Win some, lose most.